I didn't. Here we go. Okay, so this is Nikki Rowland, Chair of the HSAB. Please permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Lucy?
Yes.
Angus?
Here.
And there is no staff and no anticipated speakers. This open meeting of HSAB is being conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021. This meeting is convening by video conference via Zoom app as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join in. Participants may find information on the conduct of this meeting at that location. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by a roll call vote. Okay, so next, adoption of the agenda. I'm going to ask Lucy to make all motions.
Yes.
And Angus, you can second. Made by Lucy, seconded by Angus.
Second.
All those in favor, Lucy and Angus?
Yes.
Aye.
And I. Approval of the minutes of July 26th, probably 2021, but it says 2012.
Yes.
Made motion by Lucy,
Second.
seconded by Angus. All those in favor, Lucy and Angus?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All right. Now we have letting people in. Starting out with 33 North Mill. I don't see anybody for the applicant unless Joan, I see a name Joan on the screen. Could you please identify yourself and what application you're here for? Joan, can you hear me? Maybe not. All right, we'll try again later.
Hello.
Yes,
Hello?
hi. Yes, I can hear you.
Hi. Yeah, my name is Joan Taylor. My husband, Bill Wilmot, and myself own 16 Mill Street, and we abut 7 North Mill Street, Lot 33,
Okay.
for a new
So
dwelling.
this is your application.
No, it's not my application. I was just tuning in to see what your perspective was. So that's really, I already have a letter into HDC with my comments. So
Okay, so you're a neighbor, not, and you live
I'm
on where?
I'm a neighbor that abuts the property directly, and I have permission to represent all 4 abutters with HDC in order to streamline the process for them.
Terrific, thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to mute myself again.
Okay. Actually, I'm probably going, since there is no one here to represent the applicant, I'm going to ask the general public if there are any public comments, which probably means you, regarding this application.
Okay, I'm happy to speak on that. Like I said, I just sent an extensive letter. I think my comments represent not only myself, but the other abutters, which there are 4 of us. The houses in the area that abut are low in height, very, very simple, rural in character, have no exposed French doors to any of the public ways or the public land, which includes the Eleanor Ham Pony Field and the land bank land lots, which this property overlooks. My own house at 16 Mill Street, the HDC, we redid that in 2006. And the HDC was very adamant that it only be a story and a half, which we complied with, that I use simple additive massing, which I did. And the top height of those structures is 20 feet, 8 inches. So, I think that one of the biggest concerns is this structure from the very beginning has stretched across the precipice of the hill, 70 something feet across. It's a pretty modern footprint. with the goal of being able to maximize views from the structure of the beautiful land and historic houses below. And while I understand that, I think it's extremely important to all of the abutters and also the people that partnered with the land bank and the Muellers themselves, who donated or sold the lots that created the land bank land at a decreased cost, and all the people that donated. It's very important to them that this be right and that it not overwhelm that land and kind of the common area that's created by it. The height has been a big issue. We've gone from a subterranean level, which has been eliminated, but we're still at about 30 feet in height. So it's just that this structure appears really massive. Trees are being removed. The majority of the 60-foot trees, solid, healthy specimens where it's sited on the lot, have to be removed. They will do nothing to mitigate the height or the mass of this structure with the present location. The trees that are remaining are on the lower level. Some of them are of poor quality, very small. So, and I did send pictures of that to the HDC. I guess the last thing is, I will say the designer has made efforts to respond to some of the HDC's comments, but as far as a total rethink or exploring other additive massing and options for location on the land, there were a number of comments that weren't responded to. So I think the general consensus is that from us is that this just doesn't go far enough. And we're really relying on the powers to be that to balance the desires to see the beautiful landscape from every room in this house and every angle with the responsibility to protect Nantucket's historic fabric and heritage in this neighborhood and consider the aesthetics of the view from the public traveled ways and the traveled and the public land that's been created.
Okay, thank you very much. That was good. I'm going to ask the rest of the board what their thoughts are. Lucy, do you want to speak to this?
Well, I agree with the abutter about the height and the amount of fenestration on the plans. I don't think that that's quite suitable for the area, especially overlooking the pony field.
Okay. Thanks, Lucy. Angus?
I would say that I would voice most of the concerns that were stated by the neighbor at 16 Mill. That street, Mill, and the houses around there all have that Nantucket, typical Nantucket style architecture, 3 or 4 bays, very simple structures, additive massing in the backs or off to the side, minimally, but mostly to the backs. This is a challenging site because it's really seen from many directions. And while the address is, oh, Mickey, I think you've got 2 Mulberry Lane instead of the.
Oh, you know, yes, I may have shared the wrong screen. So thank you, Angus. I'm gonna know if I can find how to change that.
But the current design is still modern in comparison to all the surrounding structures, the massing, the going down and then going back up, and you know, just gables on top of gables, telescoping out like this view. But yeah, I think following the standard additive massing that you see in the neighborhood would be much more successful. And this just doesn't look like the rest of what's out there. And as I share the same ideas about the French doors facing Mill Street as well. So that's all for now.
All right, thank you. I have some comments also. I'm gonna first start addressing looking at it from the site plan perspective. Can you all see the site plan that I've got on the screen?
Yes.
So first of all, what comes to my attention is where the parking is. I mean, this might seem like a minor thing, but eventually we'll have to focus on that. The parking is shown right in front of the house, which is really, to me, not what you'd expect for an old house downtown in the OHD. So I think that the parking ought to be placed off to the side, and walkways or lawn or gardens of something more appropriate in the front of this house. So the massing, you can see from the site plan, this big addition off to the left is, to me, well, much too far forward. If anything, it should project to the rear, not to the front. There's room on the site plan to pull this house forward into that parking area probably. And that would essentially slide the addition, if that stayed where it is, projecting further to the back. Also, now we'll look at the elevations, the south elevation. So it's been recently changed from a 3-bay to a 4-bay house. And I think that's probably a positive thing. I think it works better with the additive massing. It's still tall, and that's been addressed by others today. So I'm not really going to speak to that, although I think it could come down, the eave could drop down to the window casing, and that would reduce the height a little bit more. At the moment, it's shown as 28 feet 4 inches, I believe. 28.5. So it's a 4-bay house with a centered front door, which, you know, to me looks pretty unusual. You just don't see a 4-bay house with a door in the middle, you know, downtown at least. So I think that the door needs to slide to the left to give it more, make it conform more to the standard 4-bay appearance. Also, the front door could use a little bit more detailing around the casing. It seems like a pretty insignificant amount of wood and the door surround to make it, it should be more important and more detailed. The upper windows, I feel, could probably spread out a little bit further to the sides of the building. They're kind of close to the center, I believe, I feel. On the left addition, I got to go to the floor plan to see this. There are 2 doors right here and here. One goes into a mudroom and the other goes into the kitchen. I think that's, when you actually see this, if you do see it from the road, that the 2 doors are going to look confusing. I think that I would prefer to see them eliminate the kitchen door and just maintain the mudroom. I think that's totally doable in plan and probably improve their circulation. The chimney detail, back to the elevation. The chimney detail to me looks awkward. I don't know if they're planning to build it that way, but it's kind of an odd stepping of the chimney mass. Also, there is, there's probably indicated, it's hard to tell from the detailing, that the main mass has a soffit overhang, which is perfectly appropriate for the main mass. But the other additions are detailed similarly. So I would suggest that the side masses and additions should have more of a flush soffit detail to make them seem a little simpler in detail and not stand out as much. And finally, I think that this house really should have corner boards. Almost every house downtown has corner boards, and why should this be different? Especially if it's sort of mimicking a Quaker style house. So moving to the north elevation, which is,
Mickey, sorry to interrupt. This is Angus, but while you're on that that front elevation,
yes,
if this really is going to be the typical Nantucket Quaker style house, there just wouldn't be that shallow front porch awning
Right.
thing. It would just,
yeah, I agree. And I had that comment written down in terms of the front porch. You wouldn't expect to see a front porch on a 4-bay Quaker. Although, every now and then they were added on, and they don't, they're sort of interesting, maybe not perfectly appropriate. But I don't disagree with you. I think the porch is probably not appropriate. I did think that in this setting, which is kind of wooded and set pretty far back from the road, that the front porch wasn't such a bad thing, but not to be expected. So I'll agree with you on that one. Here's the north, right? Okay, so on the north, this again is a 4-bay style home, yet the first floor, we're looking at kind of a 5-bay with the windows. The windows really should be aligned and relate between the floors, one over the other. And then over to the west, this I think might actually be visible from Prospect Street, looking through the between houses. So here I thought that the windows, the dormer could drop down a little bit. The windows, the sides of the dormers could be pulled in tighter to the windows. And these mold windows really should be separated. They did it on the north, the same room. So why not do it on the west? So those are my comments. Does anybody else want to add more to that?
Well, Mickey, how do you feel about those 3 windows ganged together?
Here on the west,
Yeah,
I think that they should be separated. Probably a kitchen, but still, they're right here over the kitchen sink. But mold windows aren't really desirable in the OHD. So I think they should be separated as these over to the left. Other people have mentioned the French doors, and I actually don't mind them here. They're not totally inappropriate on a side addition. On the north elevation, where they are probably quite visible, perhaps less appropriate here. Single door and windows would be better. So Joan, would you like to add anything more to that, or are we ready to move on?
I think many of your comments are very well taken. I frankly think that the arrangement of the 4 windows without moving that door over is too symmetrical and too formal for the location. So I really appreciate that comment. All of us in the neighborhood have been prohibited in our renovations and having any exposure of French doors to Mill Street, and that north elevation with the tree removal as it is, it will not be a wooded area anymore. Do not delude yourself into thinking it will. The nature of that is going to change with this is where it's located on the property. On the plan that they've submitted, if you look at it, there are 5 trees that are taken down within the footprint of the house. They've detailed those now. And also the 2 trees on the side will be lost as well, because those trees with the foundation excavation, as you know, they're not going to save those trees. These are 60-foot trees. These are the big green canopy that you see. It's where the hawk lives that, hunts in the pony field, which I know is not your purview. But truly the trees that you see on that plan below, the ones that are next to my lot, just outside the privet hedge are very, very poor, tiny trees. It's a decrepit apple. And as I said, I've sent pictures to the HGC and they're not very tall. And then the other deciduous trees that are over by the little house, I think is 3 North Mill Street. Those are significant trees, but they are not going to do anything to block the view from the Eleanor Hand Pony Field because of their location. So I just really want to make that point. And that's where this height becomes so important. And I'm not sure that the typical Quaker style that's that high is what should go in there. I frankly think it should be lower. If you look at the Woodman's house, which is over on Prospect 26 Prospect, that's also Quaker, and it's much lower. So I think, height expanse, and I'm more concerned about the view from Mill Street and North Mill Street. The south elevation of that house, the way it's designed, it doesn't have a lot of view from my perspective, even though they're calling it the front. It's more, it's not really seen because it's up on a hill and there's a no build area by the driveway. So anyway, that's my 2 cents, but I appreciate all your comments, and think most of them are very important. So thank you.
Thank you. Lucy?
Yeah, I think she makes a very good point. There's a 10-foot elevation change from where the trees are to up to where the front door is. And that is a lot. I mean, I know we don't have any say over trees, but it sure would be a shame to lose those.
Well, on that point, I think
It
that,
would be a shame. And go ahead.
oh, well, just when you're looking at the site plan and the location of the trees, you can almost see how this footprint could fit if it got closer to North Mill, on the south side of that cluster of old trees. It's and then that would provide for more yard and a little bit more screening between there and Mill Street. I think that I would love to see a re-siding of this that was more sensitive to the existing trees and landscape and the neighbors. And I think just by pulling it back offers all kinds of opportunities for a flatter backyard and a garage that's more around the back, and something that is more traditional facing the street and a little bit closer to the street. And then would offer more opportunity for doing something in the back.
I guess, are you suggesting to pull the house almost up to this no build zone? Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
At least away from the trees.
Yeah.
And it could be more parallel with North Mill, so it orients towards more
Yeah.
North Mill.
Be lower on the hill, presumably, or maybe. Yeah, I think the siding is still an issue. Trees lower.
Respectfully, may I just say something?
Sure, go ahead, Joan.
So, it actually would be more not rather than across the precipice. I think it would moving it back maybe 5 or 6 feet would do it. I am a veterinarian, though. I'm not a architect or a designer. So, but I understand the HDC feels that they don't have the ability to dictate things like trees. But in reading the act that empowers HDC, it was really meant for this property. And I just want to review that because it gives HDC extensive powers when something is in the public traveled way view. And there's no doubt, nobody argues that this is. And when there's public lands too. And this is on a registered property with land court. And it gives not only complete control over the exterior, but also they can impose other setbacks if they choose to, different than what is said. They can impose height restrictions, which was done on my property, and I have no problem with it. They can look at how things are situated on the lot. So look, I'm not trying to give anybody a difficult time. I respect the designers, I respect the HDC, but I think this is such a pivotal property. And truthfully, those trees are an asset. They're a gem. So I think that ultimately it's going to be a more beautiful project and a more valuable project to save a few of those, maybe not all of them, but 1 and 2 in front, it would minimize height, et cetera, et cetera. So I thank you for opining on that.
Thank you for adding in also. Yeah, our notes will reflect the issue of reciting and possibly trying to save as many of the tall trees as possible.
Thank you.
Obviously, the only way to do that is to move it probably closer to North Mill. So that is a big siting consideration.
As far as view sheds and the, the overall feeling, the HTC has a certain amount of control with that, but they certainly have control over siting.
They definitely, yep. All right. I think we're good with this one. Thank you, Joan.
Thank you so much for your service. You guys do a great job. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Move on to the next. Which is, what do we have now? 5 Gardner Perry Lane, demo this shed.
Nikki, can I ask that we look at the addition first?
Yep. Right there. Do you want to go ahead, Angus?
I think it looks like, Carrie, are you there? Do you want to
I'm here.
present
Hi.
this?
Oh, right. I'm sorry. Hi, Carrie. Did you want to go? Did you want to say something?
Yeah, about the shed or the addition or both? Probably both.
Whatever you want.
Okay. This house was built in 1983. I suppose it was an infill. You all are familiar with Gardner Perry Lane. These homeowners want to add a garage with an apartment above it attached to the house so they can use it for themselves or have other people use it. And the road is a dead end at their property. I'm in the DPW to find out if this is all kosher for the parking to be taken away, but I don't even know if that parking exists as legal parking. So taking 2 spaces at the dead end and putting them into the garage is the idea. I guess that's it. The connector is meant to, separate the existing from the new. And there are about, I think, 3 other garages. I think I took photographs of them and included them somewhere in the application, showing that there are 3 other garages, sizable ones that face the street as you get to this property. I think there's 1 on the left and maybe 2 on the right. So this is not unusual to have garage doors facing the street in this location. So that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Carrie. Angus?
I was just going to say, I think the garage is certainly appropriate and would work in that area. What seems awkward to me is the house to begin with, but the transition from the house to the garage. I'd rather see like the house get finished off with the rest of the massing so that it's like a full gable. It's just so awkward to have this cape with the door coming off the side, which is really the entry. And I know that that's not your all's issue, but with the addition, I think there's an opportunity to make the house a little bit better designed from the street, but also just the idea of going to a little connector and then going back up to a larger structure, I think is awkward. I'd rather see, and it looks like the topography is working in the favor of a stepped down kaleidoscoping thing that could go, or telescoping thing that could come off a larger mass where program could go either up against or next to the house, and then continue stepping down to what would hopefully be the lowest mass, the garage. It's a funky house. The garage, I think, is fine. It's the massing and the order of it that I think there's a better opportunity there.
Okay, thanks, Angus. Lucy?
I totally agree with Angus. I think the connector is kind of weird.
Yeah, I don't disagree with it. It's a tough one because of the existing awkward nature of the existing house.
Yeah,
Yeah, and there's a window well I'm trying to avoid in
yeah.
the basement that exists, but maybe I can do an overhang of some sort above that window well to maybe at least get it to be one continual roof plane rather than stepping. I might be able to figure that out.
That might help. My bigger concern, I'm glad Angus talked about the connector because I was really concentrating on the garage itself. My bigger concern was just that sort of that forward facing gable. It's kind of a large wall area and the the combination of the large wall and the gable kind of draws your attention to it and kind of competes with the main mass. Carrie, did you consider having the ridge, flip the other way? Would that, that to me, that would make less, less
Yeah,
attracting.
I see what you're saying. And I was going this way for the program inside and the light and the dormer and all that stuff. But I can certainly look at it if the HDC agrees with you. So yeah, it's not out of the question, Mickey, and I appreciate that comment because I get it.
And even the doors, which are attractive doors, but maybe just a simpler sort of barn batten door might draw less attention to it also. So those were
And be
my
less
comments.
expensive, which is nice.
That's always a good thing.
It always helps.
Any other comments from Angus or Lucy?
Well, I think I agree with you about the garage doors. They're awfully fancy for the main or the original part of the house.
Mhm.
I agree with the massing idea. It's not like this garage comes out 12 feet from the face behind it. So I think changing the gable, you could still get gable windows that give you the orientation that you had from the shed dormer, and certainly being able to do a shed dormer on the backside. On the west side, there would be an opportunity there
Right.
without really giving anything up on the front.
Good.
And that might help with the whole stepping thing as well. If there were just a long gable running back to the house from the garage.
What's the finish on the garage doors?
Well, they have white trim right now, but I don't know if I wrote white on the application, but I would, because I think you're right about the sort of glaring nature of the garage doors. So I would try to get them to say that natural to weather would be appropriate.
Good. I agree.
Yeah, agree.
I think it's white on the application, and I think that's right. Natural would make it.
Oh, actually, I've got on the garage doors, I've got V-groove wood. I don't know if I put a color. Did I put a color on the garage doors?
I don't think so.
Okay, well, I'll take that under advisement.
Says be groove wood. Okay. All right. I think those would be positive changes. Great. Thanks, Carrie.
Thanks for your advice.
Sure. Oh, now getting back to the demo of the shed, are there any concerns about this one? Angus or Lucy, do you have any concerns?
No.
No.
Nor I. Okay. All right. Moving on.
Thanks.
We are on Mulberry Street. 2 Mulberry.
Oh, this
new
is
garage.
you.
Changing. Hey, Luke. Luke, do you want to say something to start out? You're muted, by the way. Luke, can you unmute? That's better. No, muted again. Good. Got it.
So, yeah, this client turned to me and asked for, wanted a very simple structure to have some, to point to history, to accommodate 2 cars and a second floor area. It's on a hill, so it was pretty tricky. So as you can see from the elevations, we really backed the building into the hill as much as we could. And you can sort of see, I'm showing on the elevations, the sort of background of the adjacent architecture of the main house. You can see on the east elevation is in the background. And then the adjacent abutter to the is shown in dark on the east elevation to the left to give some context. And on the north elevation, the abutting buildings are shown kind of dotted in. And we got those heights from HGC drawings and interpolation on site. But anyway, the goal was to try and accommodate his, to just have a very simple structure. And I felt like a gambrel was maybe, it certainly helped keep the ridge down. And I thought it was a reasonable approach. And we had to, if you look at the site plan, we had to turn, we were forced to create a retaining wall, which we tried to mitigate. You look at the site plan. You can sort of see on the site plan where it's probably worth just having a look at the current existing conditions site plan, which is a driveway coming off of Mulberry Street, and it slopes pretty heavily upward. And then you look at our, and running inside the site is just a very low stone wall. The gradient of the front yard of the old house sort of slopes pretty dramatically down. Even though on Mulberry Street, there's a significant, this stone wall is pretty significant going along the street as a retaining aspect of, I'll have a picture. Oh yeah, the next picture up, you can, I think, see the whole retaining wall to Mulberry rear. If you scroll upward, you go up. The other way.
So you're looking for the,
It was on the bottom of your screen.
okay, well, that's, okay, got it. Yep. That's what I get.
Keep. Okay, well, so you can see there that retaining wall, that stone wall, which sort of forms the edge of the house, sort of continues past the house towards the driveway down the street. And then it rolls around the corner and turns into the driveway. So part of the puzzle here was how to accommodate his structure and also, create a retaining aspect to that high gradient on the right as you look towards the old house. So I couldn't figure out any other way to do it. So I will leave it to you all.
Okay. Thanks, Luke. Lucy, go ahead.
Yeah, Luke, what is the age of the old house, out of curiosity?
Oh, you'd have to pull up the, I'm sorry, let me see. I don't have my copy set here.
This
Yeah,
is
pull that, it should be on there.
according to this says it's a 20th century Sears Roebuck house between 23 and 49. So it's not terribly old.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Any other thoughts, Lucy?
Well, I'm having a problem with the deck. I think
Yep.
it is too large and I don't, and I don't like the way it's not completely rectangular.
Mhm.
I don't know how the others feel about that. But I think it's from the north elevation. I think that deck to the left is just twice the width that it should be. And that's an awful lot of lattice showing too. I mean, would have a lot going on. But I will defer to the others.
Thanks. Angus?
It is a challenging site. And I think that this is a good attempt at getting sort of dug into the hill, which helps. And having the eave facing the street, I think helps. I guess I'd rather see either more window or less wall or something with the dormer that faces out. I think there's a
Mhm.
more natural and sensitive way of getting the patio space between the two structures rather than going out towards the east, out over the slope. Because of the dramatic drop in slope, anything that projects out that way is going to feel a lot higher than it really is. So I think to Lucy's point, cutting it back in depth or moving it or somehow dropping it and making it rectangular would help.
Great. Thank you. I also had concerns about that deck. So I'm just going to read what I've got already written here. And it mostly deals with the siting and the gambrel nature of the building. So this proposal changes a somewhat natural and informal sloped yard into a series of rigid level terraces by using substantial stone walls. A more historic approach would be to allow the grade to slope more naturally and rely less on the tall stone walls. The existing stone retaining wall is low and pretty rustic, and this should be the model for any new stone walls that are made. The Gambrill roof, to me, is a little concerning. There weren't a lot of gambrel barns in town, and this partially sunken gambrel has an unusual relationship to the grade around it. It seems unlikely that this complicated roof type would have been used for an outbuilding in this location. The north, on the north, Angus already mentioned the dormer windows. I think they should be spread out a little more to fill the dormer. And the diagonal door pattern, I'm not sure I mind it, but I think I would like to see some examples of that in towns to show that that's something that was done previously, historically.
I believe the hose cart building has one on Gardner.
Okay, that's good to know. That helps. And then on the east, I also think that, as Angus mentioned, that this should be this deck is too tall. There's just too much unusual. It just looks like an element that doesn't belong in the OHD. It's just, it's a tall deck. It's visible, very visible from Mulberry Street. And I think that would be much better placed on the west side between the two buildings. You could screen it much more easily. So those are my thoughts. Anybody want to add more to that?
Do I want to?
Luke, any?
Oh, no, thank you. No,
Yeah,
I appreciate those comments. That's fine.
okay. All right. Thanks, Luke.
Okay, thank you all.
See ya. Oh, and by the way, these were a couple of letters that the neighbor, you've probably seen these, Luke, the
Oh, no, I haven't.
Liz Kaufman.
No.
Do you want me to read them just so you know what they are?
Sure.
It's, it's mostly describing the concerns of digging into the bank and structurally how the bank is going to deal with groundwater and the inevitable height of the building from below. I think it was more of a kind of a technical concern about
Yeah,
taking an existing bank and digging into it.
that's okay. You
Which,
don't have to read it.
Okay, and it was, I think they're well thought out and legitimate concerns, but I'm not sure there's those technical issues are something I can deal with. And this was another one, I think it's from her partner, her husband, Herschel Halloran.
That's the same handwriting, isn't it? The same person?
Yeah, well, she's written it for him.
Yeah. That's it.
Oh,
Okay. All right. Thanks, Luke.
okay, thank you.
So we're going to move on to the next one, which is 21 Pleasant Street, a new driveway. This is, I think, the old Bartlett property. Angus, Lucy, any concerns? As we're really just looking at this driveway.
Yeah. Oops, Angus, go ahead.
Thanks, Lucy. Yeah, along Candlehouse Lane, as you get closer to the pony field, almost all of the cut-ins, driveways, aprons are done with cobblestone. And this really was the outskirts of town. And for Jared Coffin, it was, or his wife, it was too far out of town. And so anyway, it has a rural feeling. This brick, I don't think is appropriate at all. I think that picture would be much more at home down on the flat east of between Washington and Union Street. But up in this area, it doesn't read as well. So I would rather see a cobblestone apron and a rock or stone driveway.
Well, they're proposing gravel. Do you
Yeah.
care about the rest of it being gravel?
No, I think that's fine.
Okay. It also looked like a pretty deep apron. I don't know. I'm not really sure what the requirement for an apron is. This looks deeper than it needs to be.
I think they're supposed to be 8 or 9 feet, but that looks like at
10.
least 10 feet. And I would make it the minimum that you can get away with. The tricky thing with there is that there's a pretty decent slope down the hill. And so I'm not sure how gravel is going to work and if that's why they want to use, a deep apron there just for traction getting up the hill. But again, I think cobblestone would be more appropriate.
Yeah, I was wondering about that slope too. My recollection is that it does slope down there, but I really can't tell from just this photograph.
It slopes a lot. I went over and looked at it. And you can't capture it on camera with a camera, but because of the grade change, I don't mind the deeper apron, as long as it's not brick.
Okay, I think we're saying you don't, oh, so you don't mind the deep apron. Okay, I was gonna see if I could find street view of this, which is probably right here.
But I think
You guys-
if we are okay with a deeper apron, maybe we should say because of the grade change, that is why we're okay with a deeper than usual apron.
Yeah, and maybe that's why they're proposing it. It does, you can see that it slopes down to that garage they're gonna tear down.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, I don't think pea stone would be a very good option here. There are plenty of gravel driveways that go up a steeper climb than this, but that's more, you know, a rougher,
Yeah.
chunkier stone.
This looks like this is the one they're tearing down, and this looks cobblestone right next door. So this would mimic what's right in the back of the property already. So I think you got a good point about cobble over brick. Okay, anything else?
yeah, they should just use the materials they have.
You're right. Yeah,
Yeah, just get rid of the asphalt at the street.
Yeah.
there.
Just use what they have.
all right. Moving on. This is 24 Mill Street. Demo shed. Pretty much in the back of the house. And they're gonna replace it with this simpler shed in the same location. Here's the replacement shed. You know, my only comment about it, both of these is, first of all, they should try to reuse it. Maybe maybe they already have. But this site plan that they're showing here needs a little work. They're showing a 8 by 10 box or something, and the site plan should reflect that. You guys have any comments?
I'm trying to pull it up. What is the date of this shed?
I had that
That-
same question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what's the date? It's awfully cute.
I
It
know,
is cute.
you know,
It's very reminiscent of, you know, the old cottages in Sconset. And I've said this before, I just hate to see these small structures going away. You'd probably never be able to allow to build something like this now. And I mean, this has got charm. It's cute. And to take this out, demo it, and to put in something that is, you know, like off the shelf, to me seems a shame.
all right, so we're asking, what is the date of the existing shed? Would prefer to reuse the old rather than rebuild.
And if rebuilding is, you know, is the only option, then I think something that is more reminiscent of this would be more appropriate.
Well, I would agree with that, but it's, you know, it's well in the back of the property. I don't know what the view is from the street, if there is such a view.
I thought there might be a view from Prospect, but it's heavily, you know, wooded and shrubs and all kinds of things. So you don't really even see it from Prospect, and it is really on the back of Mill Street, which is relatively, you know, little traveled. So
Mhm.
it's just so charming.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't totally suiting their needs, I mean, why couldn't they put a little addition onto this existing shed?
Yeah, I don't know what their decision-making thoughts are, so we can comment that we think they should reuse it. But I'm not sure what else we can really contribute in that regard. What about the new shed, which is here. There's no real dimensions. It's kind of a brief description. I just said the site, I don't think we're going to see much of this. And I just said the site plan needs to reflect the exact location and size of the new building. You guys have any other thoughts?
Well, it's not really our purview of what the use of this is, but it's a shed. So there's a dormer and there are windows on every face. And if it were, that's a lot of headroom and natural light for a bicycle and a wheelbarrow. If it is going to be like a living space or something, like make larger windows and really make it work. Like maybe it's just the scale is not exactly to scale, but that window in the west elevation looks like it starts at chest height and goes down. That seems like it should be higher and could even be larger. And the same with the backside where the dormer is. It's kind of funny to have the dormer, but the window, usually the upper half of the window is above the main roof, and then the lower half is below the main roof. And if you go to that south view, it's just kind of up, and it's breaking up the plate anyway. So I don't know, it's a little confusing. And again, it's not that visible, but I just think if you're going to lose the old shed and you're going to build a new one, you could probably have one that works better.
I think maybe, just better drawings because we don't really know where that window is going to end up. And it could be the normal position. They just didn't draw it very well. So I'm just going to sort of say for now, better drawings to show, accurate window placement. Does that sound okay?
Do we even know how high this is?
We really don't. Just proportionally, it doesn't look terrible.
Oh, it says 12 feet. That's pretty
Okay.
high.
Well, to the ridge?
Yeah. For a building that small. I think about the Underhill cottages where there's living space in the second floor, and that's 14 feet.
Right. Yeah. Well, again, we don't know until we see, unless they were to submit accurate drawings to say where the floor lines are.
Well, we really don't know what the size of the original existing shed is now either.
No, we just have the site plan.
Yeah, it shows the offset, and you could extrapolate what the offset is, for the dimensions of it. But the dimensions should be there for both the existing and the proposed.
Yeah. Okay, I think we can move on. So this one is 6 Gull Island Lane. I'm not seeing any representative for this one either. So what are a couple, there's a couple, obvious issues here. One is the change in materials. What do you guys think about the fact that they're taking this horizontal siding and changing it to shingles?
Well, that siding was typical of the period that it was built in the 30s, that German siding.
Mm-hmm. No pictures.
Shingle would fit in with everything else in the neighborhood and certainly the house next door, but that does sort of date the structure is the cladding. I think the doors are very attractive and appropriate, the folding doors.
Mhm.
I think it's a shame to lose that original roof. And my
Yeah.
guess is that it has to do with meeting code in a bathroom, but because it's historic, maybe it's grandfathered and, you know, they can get away with something a little bit smaller. It's the backside of the toilet and the backside of the tub. I'd rather see them keep the existing roof line and the existing roof framing and so forth.
Mhm. I agree with that comment. I think that, you know, this is an existing bathroom. They're not even changing the layout of the bathroom at all. So suppose that this is existing here. Is there proposed? This is the existing second floor, and this is proposed second floor. So yeah, they're not really, I mean, in fact, here's the this is existing, the 7-foot line goes well, and you know, they're, you know, maybe they're trying to get a stand-up shower in that bathtub.
And it's almost a flat ceiling. Like if it's 7 feet where you step into the tub, it's not that much shorter at the backside of the tub.
I agree. I don't think the change, to me, that doesn't seem necessary to rebuild this roof just to get better head height. So I don't know what the argument is and the reasoning for that, but I think it's needs to be explained a little better. Because
And also,
code-wise,
you look
Go
at
ahead.
that subtle broken back, you know, of it. On the back side, you can see that subtle change of, yeah, I think that, you know, that's part of the character of it. It'd be
Yeah.
a shame to have that homogenized to the flat.
right. Okay. Prefer to keep original roof line.
I love that they're keeping it pretty much as it is. So why not go all the way?
Yeah, I agree. Lucy, any thoughts?
I agree with you about the roof line, but I don't mind the change to shingle.
Okay, nor do I really.
I don't either.
Okay. Good. All right, next. Takes us to 32 North Liberty. Matt is here. Matt, you here?
I am. I'm on my phone, but I can still see you guys well, and the reception's good. So
Good, we hear you.
you can't hear me or no?
Yes,
We
I
can.
can.
Okay, great. So I can just jump right into it if you want.
Yep, go ahead.
So basically, this is an existing structure that's on the property, and we are proposing to actually like remove about 1 foot of length off of it. And I think that part has already been approved by the HDC. Reason being is to reduce it down to 200 square feet so that it would facilitate the definition of a zoning shed. Because we didn't want to demo it and we didn't want to kind of keep it on the property. So this is primarily just shifting the location of the structure in terms of where it was previously. And to put it, you know, on, you know, we're in this new location, if you will. So it is coming closer to the street, but the idea is that it's in kind of this really awkward location, and we wanted to kind of pull it forward so that we could create a little bit of privacy and maybe develop like a little bit of a usable backyard. So again, it's you know, in terms of its presence on the street, there's really no change to what it is now. It's just moving a little bit. It's moving closer to the street. So I think that's it.
I was confused. I was thinking it was moving back, but I can see what now that you're saying it, it's moving up to the street.
I was really
Um,
getting excited about it moving back. I was thinking, that's a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's worth, you know, looking at, and we just, again, in its current location, it's in a really just awkward kind of thoughtless spot. And so we looked at different locations, and there's some limitations. There's some actual overhead wires that make moving it, in certain locations less feasible. So I would encourage everyone to like look at it and go by the site and just kind of visualize, because it's not that hard in terms of like the structure where it is now. I actually do think it'll be helpful, only because it'll kind of just create more of a kind of front yard, backyard, and it is an existing structure. So anyways, look forward to your comments.
Okay,
What's the age of it?
It's not old at all. I want to say it's like 2000s or something like that. I think they were, I'll have to look into it, but it's nothing of anything. Definitely not any earlier than like the 80s. I don't think. It's a very new structure. I can look it up right now.
Lucy, do you have any concerns about moving it closer to the street in that location?
Hold on, let me look at the plot plan again. No, I guess I'm okay with that. Is the outdoor shower on it moving with it?
I think we are planning to move that. Let me just see what we've got here. I actually don't have people. I can't see on the screen actually. So if you can give me a few minutes to answer that question, Lucy, I just want to make sure I got the right answer.
I
It'll
just
take me
didn't
a
want
second
that.
to look up.
I didn't want the outdoor shower being right on the street.
Yeah, I think the plan is to move it. I just want to find out exactly. I don't even know if we've designated a new home for it. So it probably would not be right on the street. So if you want to omit that, I don't think we're proposing to move it. So I would just say is the way that it's submitted is the way that we would present it.
And the door orientation and everything like that would remain the same towards the street?
Exactly. Yep.
How come not all the windows have shutters on them?
It's a great question. I don't really know the history on that. This structure came with the project, and like I said, we were anticipating us having to, demolish it, move it, but then we came up with the idea of just, lopping off the, 1 foot to get it so that it can comply with the zoning shed definition. So I don't know. We're happy to add some if we need to, but our thought was, do as little as possible to it, keeping its current, condition, and just move it. But if there's any suggestion about either omitting or adding, I'm sure the clients would rather add if they needed to, as opposed to omitting.
I guess.
I think that the move is imposing on this street and on the original structure. It's a cute little building, and I appreciate it being saved. But Matt, did you take a look at it going south, so that there would be a little bit of yard between it and the house, as opposed to going forward?
We did, and that back corner is where it's tricky. We've got, we're also trying to be sensitive to that tree. In the bottom right-hand corner of the site plan that we're looking at right now, there are overhead wires that would make it problematic, but we did actually look in that corner.
It just seems like a shed like this is more appropriate, set back, but yet there's like wasted space in this picture, the left side. Matt, I'm not
Yeah.
sure if you can see what's on the screen, but
Yeah,
on the
totally
left
can,
side,
yeah.
it's kind of wasted space. And I'm not sure that this, a move to the left or to the south is going to be any more jeopardizing to the tree. It might even be less.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing too is that the facade of the building obviously will be prouder, just because it's over the setback. So this structure it won't be parallel in terms of its facade on the street. It'll still be, in my opinion, like secondary and composition. I think it'll work. So, but
Yeah, so now that I know that it's moving closer to the street rather than further away, I share, I guess, all of our concerns, or especially Angus's, that it just seems that it's going in the wrong direction. Not that it can go any further down the page, but it just seems like we like sheds in the backyards, not up close to the street. And this is just doing exactly that. It's bringing it, it's making it, not that it's bad now, but it's making it worse, in my opinion. If overhead
Yeah.
wires are the concern, maybe you
Yeah.
could fix the.
I mean, getting National Grid would be really challenging. I just feel like trying to get anything organized in the neighborhood is it's a big challenge. The other thing I would also say is that I feel like the structure reads not so much like a shed, or more of a kind of a secondary structure, could be, of any multiple uses. It's more ornate. I think it's got less of a vernacular of a shed and more of kind of a secondary structure, studio type, building. So, and I also think that because it's not right up on the road, it still has that secondary presence. So again, definitely appreciate your feedback. And if you get a chance, just as you drive by, it's kind of an easy thing to kind of visualize, because you're just kind of pushing it just a little bit further forward. And I think it'll be good. It also will provide a little bit of, not that we want to screen it, but I also think that it'll help. We obviously but we changed the design in a way that, the addition was all, rear L, if you will. And so the thing that I also like about this is by pulling the structure forward a bit, to some degree, you kind of make the rear L addition, less visible, which I like, just because it's, we want the presence of the original portion of the house to be, the star of the show, if you will. And so by pulling this building a little bit further forward, you kind of create a clear definition between front yard, backyard, and do provide some level of screening of the addition. So, but those are, it's just my thoughts.
Yep, I hear you. I think you're going to hear from us that it's going to be preferable to leave it either where it is or further to the right. But
Yep.
I hear you. I understand where you're coming from, but I'm not sure that's the direction we want to see it go in.
Sure. And by the way, sorry, and Lucy was built in 1987.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Great. Okay, that's the shed. And now we have the windows. Tell us what's going on here, Matt.
So there are windows on the facade inside of the building that we are hoping to replace. They're definitely not original, but we would prefer to just replace them with all new windows if we could. And so I think that our original HDC submission just called these out as existing. So we just wanted to clarify. We did include interior photographs of the windows. But anyways, that's the request. And if you need more detailed pictures or anything like that, you're welcome to go by the house too.
Matt, can you describe the balances on these windows? What is this
Yeah,
saturated?
It's got like a spring. So
Okay. Spiral balance?
yeah. Yep.
Okay. So that kind of dates them as pretty relatively recent.
Yes. I mean, not 10 years, but certainly not original.
Yeah, they're probably like 40 or 50 years, but still.
I went by and looked up at them, hopefully not scaring the people inside. But
You
But
peeper.
they are older, but they're not original.
Yeah.
Well, you know what I have to say
Okay.
is that's
Okay.
that's the problem when people replace really old windows and they put in new windows. I mean, new 40 years ago, they just don't last as long as original windows.
Well, this is just a prime example of why
Exactly.
window replacement is a problem, because the new ones don't last and and then you end up having to replace and replace.
Exactly.
I'm sensing that there's no concerns on this application.
Now,
Okay. Good. No. Okay, no concerns. All right. Now moving on to 2 Chestnut Street. Okay, Matt.
All right, I think I'm still looking at the shed. Oh, there we go. So this is an addition to an existing structure on 2 Chestnut. So I don't know if you recall, but there was a building that was approved as a standalone structure, almost very, very similar to this. And the property was sold and purchased by somebody new, and so they investigated, like they basically looked into either building it and the feasibility of building that approved structure, which is very similar as a gable forward, just like this. In the end, there was just a lot of reasons why it didn't work. There's an existing exterior egress stair that's attached to the side of the building, which is not that attractive. And part of this proposal is we are creating a new protected means of egress inside the building, which is in the core of this gable face structure. Now, the key of it is that currently the 2 means of egress from the 3rd floor of this building, one is through kind of a rear, very steep, service stair. The other one is through an exterior means of egress, which is not that attractive. I think we'd all agree. So part of our proposal in terms of the code analysis, along with providing a sprinkler system for this structure and providing accessibility, is also to increase the life safety and kind of tie it together. So basically what we're doing is making a second means of egress, removing the exterior second means of egress and replacing it with a new fire protected stairwell that goes down and leads to a public way. So I guess that's it. The existing building itself, I mean, that shed dormer drives me a little crazy. I wish there was something to be done about it, but there's no real desire to alter that main portion of the building. So we are also providing handicapped accessibility. There is a ramp that is actually basically that gap, kind of breezeway, if you will, on the 1st floor. One thing that I wanted to do that we just kind of ran out of time, but I would really love to make that, it's not really a breezeway, but it's basically our accessible ramp. And it's an open air, passage, if you will, to get to the back of the property to access the 1st floor of the existing inn, which is not accessible at all. And then also we're adding a new accessible unit on that 1st floor as well. So there's a lot of, kind of compliance that is driving a lot of this, but we've looked at a number of different incarnations of like how best to integrate or provide accessibility. Sometimes we've looked at lifts, but they, sometimes the elevation of the door access doesn't really jive with the exterior elevation. So we thought this was a very kind of simple, but effective means to provide accessibility and meet a lot of the building and life safety codes that we're trying to address there. So, but one thing I was going to say is that I would love to do some kind of a really subtle little arch on the bottom side of that, squared, opening where the ramp is. I sketched it out a little bit, and it looked really, just kind of felt a bit more sensitive, if you will. So with that, I'm sure you have lots of comments and look forward to hearing them.
I've got a quick question. I don't know if you can see the plan that I had up
Yep.
right here.
I can.
I see the ramp coming from the street, and it goes to an edge where the ramp begins and ends, and then there's a turning radius, and then it says down a step. What is that?
Let me see here. Well, because the ramp actually, you come up to that landing with the turning radius, and then the ramp, I believe, continues up even higher. And then I think we just have the step down, if you will. So if you're using the ramp, you come up, you would kind of take a 90-degree turn and then come back around. It's really the only way we could get, there's really not enough length to get the full. And then I think we're also right at our cap at, I think it's like 30 feet max. So basically it's an L-shaped ramp. You come up and then you turn around, if you will, if that makes sense.
Oh, so this is part of the ramp also.
Yes, yeah.
I see.
And the reason being is because we couldn't get the full length, you know what I mean?
Yep, got it. Okay,
So,
that makes more sense. Okay, gotcha. So, guys, Angus?
Well, Matt, you know how we feel about third floor spaces, but this particular stretch between Center Street and Federal on India is a little bit unusual. And there's some new construction, and then I'm not sure how recent other developments are with dormers and so forth for those attic spaces along there. But this would not be that unusual in this area. The relatively flat roof on the dormer and the dormer taking up so much of that roof plane, I think would be more successful if it were a little bit downsized.
mhm.
But the connection, so I guess overall, I think the addition fits fairly well in that particular stretch of India Street, but the connection to the existing building, I think, compromises both the addition and the existing building. And the open passage with the ramp going up in between is a really unusual concept for that context. And then with having a second floor bridge connection, and then the height of the connection between the two buildings. I think I would rather see this detached or attached in a more not conservative but typical fashion in that area, with a lower roof connecting the two, and having a wall top to bottom that's pushed back a bit.
Mhm.
So I guess what I'm saying is I think the building that you've designed as a standalone would be a lot more appropriate than an addition.
Gotcha. I mean, there's a lot of, things that are kind of pushing it, if you will. But I definitely have some thoughts. One of the challenging things too is like getting the proper head height to connect the third floor to that section. Because I was going to see if there's potentially a way to, lower that pitch or do something. So I'll see if there's not some way to either reduce that connector roof. And then the other thing too is I know it's a unique element, and it's, when we looked at all the options in terms of compositionally, and I think it could be a bit more successful. Like I said, it looks a bit severe here. And as you were talking, I was thinking, okay, well, maybe we could integrate some kind of like a recessed, roof. So it tends to blend a little bit more. So I think there might be some things that we could do to make it look a little bit more typical, if you will. But a lot of times, we're trying to, there's a lot of complexities with some of these older buildings and trying to improve the life safety and the accessibility and all the other different factors without completely, making it look awkward. So I appreciate that feedback, and I'll see if there's something I can do to address that.
So, Matt, I'm going to agree with Angus on most of what he said. The connector being my biggest concern. Personally, I'd rather see the remnants of the fire escape between these two buildings than that very awkward connector joining them.
Mhm.
You know, we all know that downtown hotels have had fire escapes for, you know, decades. And we accept that, but this really strange upper connector with a void below, to me, that is just totally inappropriate. I just don't see how I could feel comfortable with, you know, any of this roof line up here on the third floor and the, you know, even the two-story connector. So, you know, that's one issue. I also think that it's just too tall. You know, it's too tall. The roof line is too steep. It's too, what do I have them? It's not subordinate enough. This is an addition to an existing building. It should have this, you know, it should have additive massing. This is parallel to the main mass right up on the street. That's highly unusual. So if it's an addition, the addition should be pushed to the rear, as we always request them. This was, you know, a long time ago, this was a residential neighborhood, and all these old houses were dwellings, and you know, that's what this should look like. Is an old dwelling that's been converted to a hotel. That's fine, but the massing and the additions should reflect residential scale. And to me, this is just.
I mean, I would say, you know, because we've had these conversations ongoing, obviously, you know, I've done a lot of historic, you know, photographic research, and you know, there are examples of buildings that don't fit into that freestanding single family residential, you know, vernacular or typology, if you will. I found a lot of photographs of, you know, buildings that were of, you know, significant scale, and there is definitely some, you know, level of uniqueness to some of these historic examples. And given the fact that I think that this building, you know, there was a building approved in this same form. I mean, I would just say that it's not uncommon for a building of this size and scale, you know, to exist. And obviously there's a story behind it, and the story we're creating right now. So I definitely, again, hear what you're saying, and I'll see if I can find some more documentation, and you know, we'll just kind of keep moving forward.
Matt, what was approved there before? I don't really remember. It's vaguely.
It's literally the same. It's very similar. It was just a gable facing, you know, gable forward structure with third floor dormers. But it was just attached. Now, there was a lot in there that I don't know how they were going to build it, you know, because like you can't just eliminate a, you know, second means of egress, and there was just, I don't, you know, but anyway, so yeah, there was a building that was approved very, very almost identical to this gable forward, if you will, but it just wasn't connected. So I do have a few ideas about how to potentially address some of the concerns. I mean, I don't think, you know, Mickey, based on what you're saying, I'm going to be able to, you know, change it as drastically as you're suggesting. There really isn't a whole lot of, you know, backyard space, if you will. And, you know, this is essentially an addition to the existing inn. And so the good news is a lot of the infrastructure and the core of the primary structure is staying intact. We're keeping all of the existing stairs intact, which is great. I think the general room layouts are essentially staying the way they are. We plan to update the bathrooms where we can. And so in terms of, you know, restoration and with this structure, I feel like this addition, while it may not meet, you know, your preferred execution of like how, you know, you would add to this building, there are some site constraints. There's also some, you know, building code and accessibility code issues that we're up against. And I think that we could probably make I think based on some of the comments, I think I can actually address some of those, and we'll just do the best we can here. So, but I just would say that I do like the fact that we're keeping the existing structure in its, you know, in its, you know, its current state. We're going to, you know, update it and embellish it. But, you know, part of that is to, you know, add on to it. So, and hopefully in a sympathetic way, but definitely hear everything everyone said.
You know, I can't help but feel like you're asking us to adjust our standards to accommodate your issues of code. Egress,
They're not my
and-
issues. It's the state.
Those are. Let me finish, Matt. Those are, I get that. Those are important issues. But this is going to be a permanent building in this location. And I'm not sure we feel like, or at least I feel like, we should lessen our standards to make this fit into what the new owners want to do with the building. We still want this to look historic and appropriate, regardless of the concerns that you might have. So I think, I would ask you, you're asking us to make some accommodations. I would ask you to look at this again and see if you can, rethink it from the existing, fire escape point of view, fire safety issues, and utilize those elements to make it work with what was more acceptable before, which was a freestanding or piering sort of independent building, which to me is perfectly acceptable. But to connect it in this way is really difficult.
To that point, I think our main concern is you don't want to compromise the existing building for the new addition. And if the whole goal, instead of having a freestanding dilapidated garage, is to add more capacity for the inn with bedrooms, maybe it's 3 bedrooms and the stairs and the connector and all that, but it's pushed back the depth of that set of front bedrooms. So you get 3 bedrooms instead of 6 bedrooms, but you still add capacity, but it's more sensitive. And that way the building is more face forward rather than being flush with this addition, or the addition being flush with the main building.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree, Angus, and I know that's asking the developer, the owner, to compromise on capacity, but you're asking us to compromise on our standards for historic architecture.
I'm sorry, Mickey. I'm certainly not my intention. I'm not asking you to do that. You might, that may be how you interpret it, but I'm not asking. I haven't requested that of you or this board. We were presented with, doing an addition to this structure. There was a previous structure that was approved. And, again, there are a number of different factors that we're dealing with. So this was our solution. And I just want to be clear. I'm not asking you to compromise your standards.
Well, you're not physically, literally asking us to do that. But if we were to approve this addition, that's essentially what we're doing, because this is just, two sort of reminiscent of a few other applications we've seen recently, where it's a 3-story structure right on the street, asking to put in my opinion, too much program into a small package. So.
I mean, historically, I think, like I said, we could definitely debate that, and there's precedent for, larger structures, but we've had this conversation many times before. So again, I definitely appreciate your perspective on the matter, and we'll take it back to the owners and we'll go from there.
May I make
Great.
some comments?
Yes, I was going to ask you. Go ahead, Lucy.
I look at this and I immediately think of, this is Nantucket's first Skyway. This should be 2 separate buildings. And then with the ramp, I don't know what the materials would be used for that. I'm assuming wood.
Wood.
Wood. Okay. The reason why I'm asking that is because, as we all know, we've got that horrible underground garage next door that is not a garage really. And that was a huge mistake. I think that if this ramp goes in and then the proposed structure was 2 separate buildings, there is a lot of ways that the rampway could be handled so that it could be extremely attractive, either hanging plants, nice light fixtures or something, but I don't think the second floor and third floor connectors between the two buildings works at all. I think it sets a bad precedent. And ideally, the addition, I think, should be set back the way the other bump out on the other side is, to break up the massiveness of this. We've got a lot of massive buildings on that block. And it's kind of overwhelming. Also, the foundation, would that be faced with brick the way the Hawthorne House is?
That would be the plan. I believe, I don't know if we've called that out, but.
No, you have not, I don't believe.
Okay. We could certainly do that. I'm assuming it's a parged surface right now, but we could easily do brick.
But I think having a handicap accessible decking or patio in the back is a pleasant idea, but I really think it should be, this should be two separate buildings. It's probably safer fire-wise too.
You know, debatable only because we would be sprinkling, the existing historic structure as well in this scenario.
Okay.
But
Well,
anyway.
those are my comments, Matt.
I think
Yep,
we're
appreciate it.
being pretty consistent about the fact that it would probably look better as two separate buildings. And you could connect, I think you could connect them with a one-story connector near the back, so they still feel kind of independent. But I know that would require a lot of changes to your concept. But I think that's what we're looking for.
Okay,
So,
sounds
Oh,
good.
Before
There
we
you go.
get off of this one, Matt, anywhere where you're getting inspiration from what exists in town already, please include the photos, because there might be a situation where we're like, oh yeah, right, and that always looks good.
Yeah. No, there's some great, I've been just collecting images. I love going on the NHA website, and it's, surprising in some, just surprising, because I think sometimes I'll have a vision of what things maybe used to have been, but there's just so many examples of a very varied architectural
losing you, Matt.
history. You're losing me? Sorry, do you hear me now?
I think it's Mickey's connection.
Okay.
Now-
Anyways, I've found a number of photographs of the core district that obviously are very, very different from what's there today. And there's just a varied architectural history in the core district, different periods, significantly expressive buildings. And so anyways, I'll bring in I'll share some photos and we'll go from there.
Okay. Maybe it's my internet connection that's dropping out. I kind of heard a little of that, but not all of it.
Well, let's move on now before we lose you, Mickey.
I think we're gonna have to move on.
Yep.
Definitely Mickey's connection.
Yeah, apparently it's my connection. I'm sorry. But I think we've agreed to move on from what I'm hearing.
We have.
Yep.
Okay. All right, Matt, go ahead.
So this is just a really simple shed, freestanding shed. We did include some kind of partial, elevation views of the main house, but this is just a really simple freestanding shed we're looking to add. The owner's, storage is obviously a premium, and so, bicycles, whatever we tend to put in our sheds. So this is what we're hoping to get approved.
Okay, I think I have a couple of the neighbors online. I see Victoria and Kathy. Victoria, do you want to make some comments?
Yes, thank you. And I actually think a lot of it has been addressed in some of the other shed conversations so far. So, the first thing that just strikes me is that, this house has already been moved 10 feet forward up to the setback. And now we're looking at putting a shed in the front yard, which I've already heard on this call. We usually don't want sheds in the front yard. We prefer them in the back. I think also it's just big compared to most sheds, and it has 2 big garage doors on the front as opposed to like the smaller shed, regular doors that we've seen on a lot of the sheds today. And then my other question is just about ground cover, that unless I'm doing the numbers wrong, it's over the ground cover limit for the property as listed on the side of the application. So I'm curious just how that gets dealt with. And then I also just happened to notice that the pictures, the east elevation picture at the top of the pages, I'm not sure why that doesn't show the part of the house that would be jutting out behind the shed. It's showing open space, which I think will actually create a very different view with that shed. So I just wanted to ask about that. Those are my, and other thing too, it's 13 feet 6 inches tall, and earlier in the call, a 12-foot shed was considered too tall. So I'm just curious if it needs to be that tall. That's it. Thank you.
All right, Matt, hold your comments for a second. Kathy, do you want to weigh in on this?
Thank you. Just the same as Vicky is just, our frustrations of how much more are they going to add to this small little lot? And as you know, they're also adding a spa in the back, which is not shown on this picture, but that is a separate application. So we were surprised to see just one more thing trying to be jammed on this little piece of property. Just our frustrations on the quantity of things and the size of everything going on it. Thank you.
All right, thank you both. Matt, a question was raised about ground cover. Do you want to address that?
From what I understand, I think we're fine, but I can certainly look into that. I don't know if that's the purview of this board. It is to the extent if we have to come back for an alteration, but I think if you could let me look into that, that'd be great. But my understanding is that we're fine.
If I'm not mistaken, this would qualify as a shed where you're allowed the 200 square foot shed for free.
Yeah, that's the plan.
Okay, it doesn't really even count as ground cover. Lucy or Angus?
Yeah, we had a shed, was it over on Westchester or something, the same sort of situation, that they wanted the shed right at the end of the driveway at the front of the house. And we made them turn it and put in landscaping so that it wasn't as noticeable.
Mhm.
Am I correct? Was that Westchester?
I think I remember what you're talking about, and this one already has the eave line facing the street, which I think is preferable to having the gable facing forwards. But you're right, it was close to the street, similarly to the one on Westchester. I'll add to that because my feeling is that somebody mentioned that we normally like to see sheds in the back, and I actually completely agree with that. I think that if this could be moved to the back, that's exactly where it belongs. If it has to stay in the front, if the HDC thinks that it's acceptable in this location, I think as a minimum, right now the front wall of the shed aligns with the front wall of the building. And I think that as a minimum, this should be pushed back from that face 2 or 3 feet to give a slight, distinction of being a secondary building entirely. And I know you've also got some equipment back there that you're trying to maintain. So maybe just the shed gets a little narrower instead of being 14 feet deep. Maybe it's 13 or, 10 or 11 feet deep. So I think that would go a long ways to appeasing neighbors to some degree. Angus?
I think a shed in this location is awkward. I didn't want to say that without going to the street and looking at examples. And there's there's one other shed on that street that is visible from the front, but it's stepped back. If the building that it's on the land with has like 2 or 3 steps back, it's like the third step back. So if this is 1 step back, to make it work being beside it rather than behind it, wants to step back further. I think what further exacerbates the situation is that you actually have building behind it. So it really is like building a shed in front of the building. If it were just a simple rectangular house and there wasn't anything behind it, it would feel more like it was beside rather than in front of the house. It doesn't really show up in the elevations about the part of the house that comes behind the shed. So I think that's a little unrealistic there.
Yeah, I think that was and just for the abutting property owner that mentioned it as well. So yeah, it was a setting that it wasn't intentional. They left it off on one of the views, so it wasn't consistent. So I apologize for the confusion, but was not by design. It was a drafting.
I would much rather see this on the back of the house and use, I don't know if it's possible to use the easement of the driveway, but that would be a much more appropriate place for it behind the house rather than in the front yard.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, I think so. Sheds are typically in the back. I get that it's relating to the driveway to some degree. It's for bike storage and things, but still it's a shed, and we like, especially in the OHD, we like to see sheds in the back.
Mm-hmm.
So anything else?
Well, just I think that it's a rather large shed in relation to the size of the house. The overall design of it, if it were scaled down, I think is a great shed. The doors, the windows, the roof lines, all that I think is great. It feels large compared to the house.
True. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, I think we're done with this one.
Sweet.
Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, I think that's my last one, right?
It's the last for all of us.
I know. Okay, well, listen, thank you for your time and efforts, and I will see what I can do, take your comments and see if I can integrate them as best I can. But thanks for your time.
We would appreciate it. Thanks very much.
See you, bye.
All right. Yeah. All right. That was a long one.
I'll make a motion to accept the comments.
I'm
Second,
going to ask Lucy to
Oh,
kind of switch those
sorry.
around. Easier
I
for
screwed up
me.
your order.
I make the motion.
Thank you.
Okay, Angus.
I'll second that.
All those in favor, Lucy and Angus?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And motion to adjourn made by Lucy.
Yes.
Second by Angus. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Mickey. Great job.
All right.
I had to chair the earlier meeting, Wisconsin Advisory Board.
Yeah, it's the Mickey show, as I tell Kevin.
I wish it weren't, but thank you. All right.
Great
See you
work.
later.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.